South Mississippi, near my hometown of Brookhaven. That's about an hour south of Jackson. As long as I can remember, my dad had a small cow-calf operation, and even from an early age, there was always something going on, something to do. From an early age, I learned the value of hard work. Wasn't always fun, but there was something to do, whether it be putting out fertilizer, fixing fences, working cattle. I think I really enjoyed that because it instilled at an early age the value of hard work and what it meant to produce something and take pride in what we did. And so growing up, I always also enjoyed art and design. And once I left home, I wanted to somehow combine those two things I enjoyed, the enjoyment of nature and forage production, as well as my enjoyment for art and design. And so ended up going to Mississippi State University, where I majored in landscape architecture and contracting. It's a little bit of a non-conventional route to where I am today, but I think it gave me a good foundation for the knowledge of the natural landscape, not just forage production in and of itself, but topography, soil hydrology, plant systems, and how they interact with and in their environment. And so that laid, I think, a good groundwork. From there, in 2010, I began my master's degree, also at Mississippi State, in agronomy. And so I realized I didn't want to be designing landscape plans for the rest of my life and necessarily be in a desk position, but I wanted to get back out in the field. And so when I finished agronomy, I landed a job with Mississippi State Extension Service, and I was able to work in forage production, where we served the forage producers and livestock clientele across the state of Mississippi in an extension associate position there. And so I think my background in design and learning the landscape, as well as learning all the plants, the different species, the different environments and ecosystems where they grow, that really, I think, laid the foundation for me getting to extension. For about 6 years, I worked in that extension position at Mississippi State, traveling across the state, doing research trials, answering producer calls, and I think that's really where I gained my enjoyment for serving the clientele of the state that I was in, and answering their questions and at least providing them some help for their forage and livestock production. I finished my degree in weed science at Mississippi State. I continued to serve in that extension role for a couple more years until I took this job in 2019 with Auburn University and Alabama Extension. And now I'm pleased to be able to serve the clientele of Alabama doing forage weed management across the state. I think no matter what sector of agriculture that we're working in, there's always weed species to be managed, and forage systems are no exception. You know, just to mention a few of the projects that we have ongoing currently, you know, I think of the troublesome grasses that often come up in our permanent grazing pastures as well as our hay production. Those like foxtail, both annual and perennial foxtails, vasy grasses, smut grasses. A lot of these grasses are very problematic, and probably one of the worst scenarios for me as a weed specialist is to figure out how to remove a weedy grass from a desirable grass in forage systems. Doesn't always just come down to herbicide selectivity. I think it's an integrated approach in a lot of cases. So the grasses are just one group of weed species that we're constantly dealing with on an annual basis in forage production and trying to figure out some answers. There's also a lot of sedges and rush species, as well as the carex species. I know we have the black belt soils that go through the middle of Alabama, and so in those environments you see a lot of the carex species like Cherokee sedge. It looks like a grass, but it's really not, and it's not that palatable nor productive, especially in grazing systems. So in the fall we began a project looking at herbicide combinations as well as herbicide timings to try to get rid of those sedges, or at least suppress them, so we can encourage our desirable species with proper soil fertility and grazing management. We also work in the woody brush systems and the non-crop areas in marginal lands. So if you think about old fields that you want to try to reclaim and turn back into productive systems, we're working on that as well. Just this last week, we were working on a project to look at cut stump applications of different herbicides to sweet gum. Sweet gum is just one example of the many woody brush species that we see invading pastures. And so we're trying to develop different methods as well as herbicide selections to effectively control these brush type species like sweet gum and many of the roses and the rubus species, the brush species that may grow up in old neglected fields and along fence lines. In forage systems, most everybody has a fence line to manage, and that's one area in ag production that has to be maintained, and so we're addressing that through our research programs as well. I think some of the most rewarding experiences in my career so far from a research and extension standpoint has just been seeing the challenges that many growers face and the problems they have in their production systems, and being able to have the resources at the university level to look at these challenges in a non-biased way. And so being able to look at their problems and go through the scientific method to be able to deliver them an answer. You know, from my standpoint, in weed management and forage systems, it's usually an integrated approach. So we dig through the literature, we find what's been done before and what hasn't been done yet, and we're able to go through that process to find an answer. And what's really rewarding is to finally be able to come up with an answer and then deliver it back to that producer so that they're able to make those changes and see the benefit and their return on investment. And so through extension, we've got many avenues to disperse that those type answers. And so it's really rewarding to see those producers get the benefit from what we're doing here at the university level. And then, you know, the icing on the cake really is then to put that into peer-reviewed publication so that not only the clientele of Alabama and the Southeast can see it, but it's a worldwide accessible resource that could be answers for many other producers facing the same issues. So that's, from my early career, my standpoint, probably one of the most rewarding things so far. Some of the contributions that I would like to leave in my career would be just that I've done my best in the role that I have right now to address the many concerns that our clientele have. And so whether it be through research and or extension, you know, I want to be looked at in this role as someone who cares about the end user. Many times that is through extension because we're able to meet one-on-one with producers statewide. And so to address those questions and their issues, you know, I want to be seen as someone that's genuinely interested in their problems and their concerns, and not just come up with a textbook answer, but to genuinely see the complexities of their issues that they're facing and then deliver them answers and some solutions that are also adoptable, that they can easily implement into their programs to be more profitable. As an educator, we have the opportunities to mentor students as well, and so in addition to that, I'd like to see the many students leave our program and go on to bigger and better things and also have the same or similar impact in their careers as well. I think if I had to leave one message for those listening, I think it would be just to enjoy what you're doing, whether it be any type of ag sector, but especially forage production and livestock production. Just really enjoy what you're doing. I know things can be challenging at times and we can face many problems and issues, but there's always something to be thankful for and something that we can find enjoyment in, whether you're doing it full-time or part-time. I know the many challenges that we face, it can be hard sometimes and you might feel like you're going through this alone, but no, that's not the case. Please reach out if you have problems or issues or the many challenges that we often face on a daily basis in forage and livestock production or any sector of agriculture for that matter. Reach out to those you trust, your peers, and those of us in Extension. We're here to help and walk you through those many challenges. And for those that are listening who may be young in their career or students just starting out, picking their career paths, again, find something that you love doing, that you enjoy doing, that you can see yourself doing for a career. Something that's rewarding, but challenging at the same time. But at the end of the day, you want to be able to enjoy what you're doing. So I think that's one of the messages I'd probably leave for someone.